Hi folks, this video is going to be talking about the reflection portfolio. At this point we'll have gone over this assignment sheet kind of briefly, but we're going to get into some more depth on how to accomplish this assignment effectively. And so this video is going to be talking about that. Also, this video will just be focusing on part 1, which is the letter to me. So you're going to be writing me a letter for this part 1 that gets at two big components: writing growth and learner growth. So we're going to be talking out throughout this video what this is, what is expected, and how do we get to this idea of writing this reflection letter. How do we get to this point? And so I'll be incorporating ideas of metacognition and reflection. Ideally, you'll be looking at that for your homework and reading along some text as well. So you can use this video to supplement those materials as well. So let's get started though by looking at what this part 1, this reflection letter, is. So on a broad level, what this assignment is you're going to be writing me a letter. So be sure to follow these genre conventions of what a letter is. What the letter is going to include, and it's going to be 2 pages, what it's going to include is that you're going to want to divvy this up into 2 sections. So one talking about writer growth and one talking about learner growth. So for this first section on writer growth, what you're going to do is you're going to go over to Canvas and you're going to look at the document that says course outcomes, and I'll pop over there in a second. But you're going to look at these course outcomes, and these are also in the syllabus that I distributed at the beginning of the semester, but you're going to choose 2 of these and you're going to discuss and reflect on these. Discuss your growth or need for growth in the skills we've worked on this semester. So what you're going to do here is you're going to go through these course outcomes, and I'll pull them up on the bottom here if I can find them. Here they are. So here are the course outcomes. And you're going to read through these and try to understand them the best you can in your own words. And really how you want to be thinking about how these resonate with you and how these have enacted themselves or been enacted this semester. So what you're going to do for those is you'll be identifying one outcome and identifying 2 outcomes and summarizing the ways that you interacted with this learning objective in class. So you can talk about, how you engaged with it, what were some examples that we did in class, what were some larger assignments that ask you to do these things, like what does it mean to deepen your rhetorical knowledge, how did you engage with that, how did you interpret that throughout the semester. And then once you get through kind of working through identifying, including one example, you're going to want to explain how you see yourself approaching these skills in future classes. So how do you plan on taking this idea of deepening rhetorical knowledge to a future situation or future class, a future job or internship, anything like that. Similarly, you're going to get down to this section about learner growth, where you explain what you have learned about yourself this semester as a learner and what would you like to continue working on to improve yourself as a learner in the future. So this one up here is specifically in terms of writing and the things we did in class. This one is more an overall reflection on learning. So you're free to discuss anything that impacted your learning, academic or personal experiences, positive or negative, and what you learned from that. So you could also, there's also some suggestions for reflection points that I'll be pulling up right now. These questions are going to be available on Canvas, and I strongly recommend perusing through these to kind of guide that learner growth section of your reflective essay. But what we want to make sure we do in here is that we want to identify what it is you have learned or come to understand about this semester. Recall 1 or 2 concrete experiences which brought this understanding to light, so we want to make sure that this is grounded in actual experience, and then reflect on how this understanding will shape how you approach learning in the future. So what will you do to either combat this, or if it was something that you found successful, how are you going to make sure that you continue to do this as well? So that's what is expected and kind of what the assignment is. On this rubric is really helpful. This is on Canvas as well. You might look at this excellent category, so identifies at least 2 course outcomes from the syllabus and thoughtfully summarizes the way a student interacted with the outcome over the course of the semester. 1 concrete example that illustrates this, and then a well-developed explanation on how you foresee yourself using these skills in the future. So that's for that writing growth. That kind of summarizes what we just talked about. It's a really helpful document. In the learner growth section, you want to explain what you learned about yourselves as a student And then you want to include 2 concrete examples to illustrate and explain this growth, and then again relating that to future contexts. Where I've popped over to now is the sample A4 that I've uploaded on Canvas. So again, we're just going to be focusing on this reflection part 1 right now, and you'll notice that it's written like a letter. This is a really good example of what I'm kind of expecting for this. You notice they start with the first outcome, they incorporate, a specific instance where they're working on it in class, the stakeholder proposal, they go through how they will do this in the future, how they will continue to enact these concepts, the second course outcome, and then they do the same thing here. They do that process of identifying, including, and explaining. And then we get down to this idea of learner growth, where you want to identify, recall, and reflect on 2 examples as well, and they work through those situations. So we'll be talking about the sample A4 as well in the future, but this is a really, really awesome document to use as a reference for what's expected in this assignment. As you'll notice also, there's salutations at the end, and again, this part is a letter that I will be reading, and 2 pages in length is preferred for this. So I've hopped back over to the assignment sheet, and now I want to kind of talk about how we're going to get to effectively completing this assignment. And so this unit we're focusing on now is on metacognition, or thinking about thinking. And it's a really important skill that you're going to find extremely useful and helpful outside of CO 150. It's going to be a very transferable skill. So I have some notes, and so I'll pop over there to get at what metacognition is and how it will be helpful. So a helpful way to start this out is this quote by poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge. He asks, "Do you know your knowledge?" And he's trying to point out the difference between knowing what we know and knowing that we know. The first calls upon cognition, while the second requires metacognition. In other words, to think through a solution to a problem differs from an awareness of how we came to resolve that problem. So think about that real quick. It's this process of thinking about thinking, or the process of thinking about how we came to resolve or complete that task. So metacognition is the process of thinking about thinking. It's not cognition in that it's the application. It's not cognition because cognition is the acquisition and application of knowledge through complex mental processes. So we do this when we write. We do cognition when we write. Sorry, that's an awful typo.